there's more, as it turns out. I got a nice little epilogue, and it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. You get characters talking about the state of the world after you've hit the narrative climax.
Yeah. Instead of, and this is what I was joking about with Matt, you know, that thing in say Battle for Azeroth where we get like a 2-hour quest line, and then it's like, all right, I wish I could do Nikki's comedic Magni impression. That'd be so good.
The wounds, champion, the wounds.
Yeah, and it's just like, I do a quick little 2-hour story. I go on an Iolotha, I fucking Dragon Ball Z in Azoth. We get a shot-for-shot remake of The Fall of Mordor. I go back to Magni. He's like, oh, cheers, mate. You've destroyed the big evil. You're 72 gold. Done.
Yeah.
Zilch. No epilogue. No further exploration of the state of the world and the characters.
Didn't have time. Didn't have the resources. Sorry.
In FF,
doesn't matter.
In FF, I got that, and it made it feel like my character was more in the world, and this group I'm in, I mean, come on. Compare the Scions of the Seventh Dawn to the Champions of Azeroth.
Wait, the Champions of Azeroth, was that not...
Oh, Magni's faction in BFA.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he had a faction. I thought it was just him.
Yeah, you maybe forgot that. There's the faction war going on, but we're members of the Champions of Azeroth, and, you know, while we're warring with each other, we're also healing wounds and doing things to say...
Yeah, it's a completely different thing.
You can just tell there's an institutional focus on like spectacle and theater and storytelling within the FF team that is quite simply not present.
Yeah, it's it's a very, very philosophical difference, I think, where World of Warcraft was never about story. It was about a world. It was about lore.
Yeah,
and it was about the background. You know, you never expect you wouldn't expect to go kill Onyxia and get a big cutscene. You never expected to kill Ragnaros and get a big cutscene where everyone went, well, good job, everyone, we've done. Here's a big epilogue of characters talking for 20 hours. You expected quest text because that's the rules of engagement essentially for that time. And they've kind of tried to adapt that, but not give it their whole heart because it's a slight change in direction. Whereas in FF, from the get-go, they were like, well, this is a Final Fantasy game. This is going to be story-driven. We're going to have cutscenes. We're going to have all of these narrative things played out. Yeah. But that's a relatively new thing for World of Warcraft. Because, I mean, that as a focus, as far as I remember, only really started in around Mists, where they started to have a lot more of that. I mean, it kind of started mostly in Wrath, but... Great
small stories in Wrath and Kata. I think people really like... okay. It's a bit weird that Azeroth has been busted for over a decade.
Of course, yeah.
But I think generally, I wouldn't be surprised if some people actually preferred the level up, the sort of endgame-ish Kata zones. Because, just some of those smaller quests like Stone Talon were great. And that's like that nice little, small level of storytelling that's great. But I think when it comes to like, the big story, FF can do it in a way where it feels polished and stuff just beyond Blizzard. Because FF's 2013 in-game cutscenes are leagues above a bunch of Blizzard's. Like, for Blizzard to do a good in-game cutscene, they have to, and this is something where Blizzard are really paying the price for their technology. If they want to do that, they have to create a new Anduin, face, mesh and rig and full set of animations so they can hand animate Anduin talking. In those in-game, it's not the pre-rendered in-game cutscenes, but the in-game cutscenes, but you can tell they're a higher level of quality. They have to do so much custom work to get that to work. In FF, that stuff's clearly been a focus from the beginning, so they get it for free. Yep. And that's where you really you notice that problem with Blizzard. And there's another one too. So whenever my character, because obviously my character doesn't speak with a voice that I can read because it's my character. And if they gave my character dialogue, it wouldn't be my character anymore. It would be theirs. So instead, my character will, mouth something or nod, play some basic emotes. And it works enough. In World of Warcraft, those very same emotes are so goofy. Like, you've seen the WoW emotes, right? They're so goofy. I mean, a thumbs up is not just like, oh yeah, thumbs up. It's like some full goofy cartoon thing. And the problem is that as their character models have got more goofy and cartoony, their stories have got, at least what they've tried to do, way more serious and dark and grim. And that means that if, let's just say the Blizzard team wants to do a real serious quest line where my character is involved, and they have to use a thumbs up emote or something like that, it's going to be totally inconsistent to the point where it literally will not work.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue for Blizzard. I don't know how they get out of it, because they can't just completely change WoW models. Because the solution to this that would involve updating how characters are created to be way more granular and a way more modern system. Look, I don't want to explain all of the stuff. People who've worked in 3D, you'll know what I mean. That will subtly change the art style of World of Warcraft. It will just look different. So they can't change how players' characters look and feel. But at the same time, they've painted themselves into this technical corner. And then when it came to doing the emotes, there's a reason why they're big, cartoony, and goofy. It's because they're designed for when your camera is back here. Because they did those in-game cutscenes in Warlords of Draenor. They did those emote designs with the Warlords of Draenor character revamp. That revamp happened before they started doing the big in-game cutscenes. So now if you do an in-game cutscene, it's like sometimes theater actors. This is something, it's a big difference between being a theater actor and a film and television actor. A theater actor is further away from their audience. They'll often have to have quite exaggerated, like facial expressions and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why they're exaggerated personalities from theater, because that's the exaggerate.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
And for some theater actors, whenever they then are doing a scene where the camera's like right here, they have to change because it's very close up. And the same way of acting that they're doing in the stage, where people are, in the audience way over there, that's not going to work when a camera's up in their face, like it's film and television. And WoW has this exact problem. Its emotes are designed to be big hammy theater, not hammy theater, but like they're designed to be very readable from a distance. And then that means when you try to do in-game storytelling by, putting a camera up in a character's face, everyone's too goofy. So Blizzard are in a really rough situation with that. I don't know how they get out of it, but it's a rough situation.
There's that, what I was sort of trying to get to about the lore versus story thing is that there is a way out. The only problem is they're not going to like hearing it. Because there are two ways to get out of the current problem where they technically can't do story stuff very well. I mean, let's completely ignore like anything about the quality of writing or the concepts of writing or how they're doing it in terms of how they're actually engaging story writing, because there's certainly problems there, but technically they can't do it. So they've got two options. Fix the technical reasons they can't do it. That's number one. That'll be a ton of engineering, a massive amount of artwork, etc., etc. The other option then is to not do it anymore, which I think it's where World of Warcraft can find itself its own unique voice.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound weird, but going back to the classic days, the classic idea of there was no story in World of Warcraft Classic. There were stories, there was lore, there were things that happened and things you did, but there was no overarching story that was super hyper important. There were no cutscenes that you were rammed through. There's no campaign. And I think you can still have a campaign, but you have to figure out how to do your job within the constraints you have.
That's it.
And that's the important part. And to me, that means the simple way to do that is immersion.
Yeah.
Do more with your quests and more with your quest text. Because if it's too expensive to do big cutscenes, because realistically, you could get a lot of work out of doing all of your cutscenes the way you did with the ending of the Sanctum of Domination, when you have the big bespoke cutscenes as opposed to the stuff that's literally done in engine in game, because you want to do that. Like you just can't. You either spend massive amounts of money bumping up Terry and Gregory's department and having them be like the largest part of the WoW team to do all of it that way, or you figure out how to, because I think they did it pretty well in Legion, actually, now that I think about it. Those in-game cutscenes were very rarely used in Legion, and when they were used, they felt nice, because all the mount stuff. Like, I remember the DK mount.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was literally just some character spell animations, but it was filmed quite nicely, and shot in a way that I didn't like. It was very constrained, but it felt like it worked. And it feels like they had the time to design what works with their restraints instead of trying to force this shit through. And I think that's the important part.
A good point and very important. And when I think about that, it's like, you know, what comes into my head, and it is way more in the way of voiced dialogue.
Yep.
And then changing their entire approach with quests. So one of the things that works great in FF is whenever you're going through a quest, it's not just open, you know, click NPC, pops up, click accept, woo. It's a quick conversation. And the fact it's a conversation means the NPC is talking to my character instead of me viewing a wall of text in a quest frame. And you know what? You click through like you're going through dialogue in a narrative game. So they need to do that. They then need to, you know, if it makes sense, perhaps get the writers a bit more involved in that so that our characters are a bit more consistent. They need to, you know, have way more callbacks and like just for things to, I mean, you know, in FF, right, you accomplish things in your character, and there's times you go talk to an NPC from the past. Like I've been doing a tiny bit of the post ARR content. I go back to Wineport where, you know, I was getting the wine so I could throw the party in the Costa del Sol, which is one of the boring, you know, filters in the ARR questing. Yep. And those NPCs are like, oh, hey, it's you. You know, all these things you've done.
Yep.
And that just felt really satisfying. They need to do more things like that, because what that's doing is like you, the player right now, get a nice little connection tied to what you did in the past. I mean, imagine if FF14 did soulbinds. Now, I'm not saying
it'd be beautiful.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that FF14 should just steal the Covenant system. Definitely not. But in FF14, I do have an impression that if my character had literally soulbinded to somebody, that I would maybe get some narrative content and I get to learn who they are as a person. Now, you might get to do some of that with Pelagos and Clea. I'm a Night Fae. I mean, who the fuck have I bound my soul with? I don't really know.
Naya, yeah.
Yeah, Naya, but like, who's she? I mean, there's a little bit of her in the questing, but like the soul binds that I have bound my soul to have less than the Warlords of Draenor garrison champions.
Bodyguards, yeah.
Or with the bodyguard trait, who had like 4 quests or 5 quests when you got them to higher like rep or whatever levels.
Yeah. That's the problem, because you've got, you know, you've got I mean, I can't remember how many bodyguards there were. There are definitely quite a few, but there are 12 soulbinds overall. So you've got to do that for 12 different things, and then you're wasting content because not everyone's going to see all of it. So you've got all these like development problems. Whereas I feel like if FF did that, FF wouldn't go, here's your 12 gameplay choices tied behind one gameplay choice of 4 things. It would be, here's 4 characters this expansion. You're going to spend 20% of the expansion with each of them, and then for the last 20% you'll have all 4 of them, because that's how a JRPG would do it. Introduce character, deal with character arc, have it sort of, you know, come together towards the end or towards an important narrative point. And that's kind of the difference, where it would be designed in a way from all levels to be the sum of its parts, or greater than the sum of its parts rather. Whereas that's the thing, the gameplay designers thought of soulbinds, but I can't imagine that being a thing where, you know, I can't imagine Ian sitting in a group with, like, you know, the leads from every department and working all this stuff out. I feel like with how World of Warcraft's designed, it feels more to me like, I mean, I might be completely wrong. This is just a gut feeling, but it feels like the gameplay designers probably thought of the soulbind system, and then they kind of scrambled to get it all to work.
Yeah, they did like the narrative framing for it and stuff.
But they didn't go, let's make this soulbind shit the best experience for all players. They likely just went, fuck it. You know, soulbinds will work, right? Whatever. Have you got any characters planned? We'll use them as soulbinds. And to be fair, there's some of the traits that like feel right for the character. There's stuff with Pelagos where it's about confidence and about doubt.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, face your doubts, get stats. And that stuff's actually cool.
I wish it worked like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really stupid, but it's like, you know, your doubt will spawn, you look at it, you're more confident, feels like it's part of the core narrative or the core of Pelagos' story, and that stuff's nice. Same with Braun and the little, I can't remember his fucking name, the mechanical the mechanic Swolkin. I can't remember what they're even called anymore. The stewards. So there's a bit of that that's like interesting and unique, but there's no quest content. There's no specific, here's a super design. It's like a kind of a nuance thing that they didn't put a lot of time or resource into, where if they did, that would have been substantially better.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. I mean, they could get away with just being more lore oriented instead of story oriented, but it's those details.
Yeah.
It's those details that make all the fucking difference.